Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi Maseches KIDDUSHIN Chaf Dalet. We got up to the last line on Chaf Gimel Amud Beis, and yesterday at the end of the DAF we discussed an interesting question. Is it possible for a wife to receive a gift and have that gift belong to her, independent of her husband? So we know there are some things that she can own that are actually hers, even though she received them during marriage, because let's say nichsei maluk, right? Let's say she inherited something from her family, so these belong to her. He can access the produce, the peiros, but the actual principle, let's say the field or the house, belongs to her. Here we're speaking about a gift. Let's say somebody grants her something, gives her a gift, and says, "Look, I want it to be yours." With a specific intent, a specific purpose, a specific function. So we discussed this yesterday. According to the Rabbanon, it can work by an Isha, or actually we're speaking more about an Eved here. So, you can give them something and have it stay with them and not be passed on to the husband, or in the case of the Eved, to the master. That's the Rabbanon Shita, and therefore you can use that money to go free, right, to bail himself out. Rabbi Meir disagrees. He says, impossible, it doesn't work. You give her a gift, it reverts to her husband. Asks the Gemara, we seem to have a contradiction between Rabbi Meir over here, who says it doesn't work, and Rabbi Meir elsewhere, who says, yeah, it belongs to her. And likewise, a stira in the Rabbanon, over here they say it stays by her, and elsewhere they say otherwise. Says the Gemara on the last line on Chaf Gimel Amud Beis, Rabbi will have a contradiction. Did Rabbi Meir, Ad Rabbi Meir, between Rabbi Meir over here and Rabbi Meir elsewhere. Virami de Rabbanon, Ad Rabbanon, the same thing with the Rabbanon. The Sanya. Ein isha poida maser sheni b'lo chemish. We know that when a person redeems his maser sheni, so that's the part that you separate from your produce, you're meant to bring it up to Yerushalayim and eat it there. If it's too difficult at the moment, you redeem it. You transfer the kedusha to money. Typically, it's value for value. But if you're the owner, you're the actual farmer, then you have to add a chaimish, a fifth. But if a stranger does it, there's no fifth add-on. Says the Brisa, Ein isha poida maser sheni b'lo chaimish. If an isha does pidyon, she redeems the maser sheni, which, as Rashi says, at this point in the Gemara is assumed to be coming from his field, his maser sheni, and she's doing the pidyon sort of on his behalf, she must add a fifth. That's the Shitas Tanakama, the Rabbanon, because it's as though he's doing it, she's doing it for him. Rabbi Shimon ben Lazar, Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says no. Isha poida maser sheni b'lo chaimish. She can do it without a chaimish. She need not add the add-on, because it's not really hers. And only the owner, the actual owner, the actual Baalim, is the one who's meant to add the fifth. Now, we're assuming it's his produce, it's his fruit, but whose money is it? Heichidami, Ilam Mezuzah, the Baal, Umasr, the Baal. Money is his, fruit is his. Well, of course you have to add a fifth. She's just doing it for him. Right? She's just doing a task for him on his behalf. It's really his pidyon. It's all his. Shlichusei de Baal Ka'avda, of course you add a fifth. Vela Mezuzah did da. We're speaking about her money. Umasher the day in his fruit. Well, in this case, of course, there is no fifth add-on. Ish Amar Rachmana, the pasuk says, V'im goil yigal ish mimasra, the actual owner, but below Isha, not the Isha who's doing it for him. With her money, it's her transaction. There's no fifth. So, what's going on? Elalav, it must be speaking Kai Gavna, this type of case. It's his farm, it's his fruit, but the money is sort of hers, not hers. That's the question here. That's the machlokes. Do we treat it as hers or not? And what's the case? Exactly our situation. Somebody gave it to her and said, look, here, take some money, which is not meant, really meant for your own consumption. It's not really yours. It's yours only to be used for this purpose. And that's the question. Does it stay hers for this purpose, or does it revert to being his? A stranger walked over and gave her money. He gave her money. V'amalei tells her, Almanas, I'm giving it to you on condition shift tifti boy es hamaser. You can only use it for one purpose. Take this money and redeem the maser as though it's yours, as though it's your transaction, and don't have to add a fifth. V'ifcha shamanalu. And the shitas here are exactly the reverse, exactly the opposite of before. Because here we're saying that when a person gives her something with this in mind, with this tonight, with this condition, Rameir says, yeah, it works. It stays her money for this purpose, and it's her transaction. There's no chaimish needed. And the Rabbanan say, no, it becomes his money. Whatever she gets is his. And it's basically his transaction, which is exactly the opposite of yesterday's Gemara, where Rameir says it goes over to him. Rabbanan say it stays by her. Rabbi, you're right, we're stuck. Eifach, we have to switch around the names here. And we'll make this price match up with the previous sugi. Rabbi Amar Leil Seifach, you don't have to switch any names. You thought we're speaking about his farm, his maser. No, it's her maser sheni to begin with. A totally different case. V'acha b'maser de asam bein nasha askinan. Bein nasha is a term referring to her family. It's something she was yeresh. Her father passed away, and he had some maser sheni, and now it went over to her. She owns the fruit. It's her nichsei melug. There's no question, it's hers. But he has access to the, to the peiros of the nichsei melug. So in this case, it's already fruit. But basically, you treat it as principal. You have to take it and sell it and reinvest that money, from which he can take benefits and produce. Question: what status does this maser sheni have? For Rabbi Meir says that it does not revert to him. It's her fruit, and therefore it's her transaction. Because he's going like his shita, the Amar. Maser sheni momen hegdeshu. It's a big machlekes. How do we treat maser sheni? Is it personal belongings, which you just have to, treat a certain way, you have to eat it in Yerushalayim or redeem it, but it's really yours? Rameir says no. Momen hegdeshu, it's holy. It has, there's a girsa momen gavoyahu. It belongs to heaven. It's Hashem's product. It doesn't really personally belong to you. It's yours to a certain extent. It's yours to look after it, to eat it properly, but it's technically Hashem's property, so to speak. Momen gavoyahu. The owner is not the husband. The husband does not get it. It's not like your typical, nichsei melug, which when she gets goes to him for to a certain extent, basically, that he can get the produce, he can benefit from it. No, here it stays with her. And when she redeems, it's her redemption, and she's not, and she's an owner, and therefore there is a chaimish. Sorry. Let's correct that. So Rashi adds that it's Maser Gavoya, right? So it's not really his. But one more thing. I forgot this point. Whose money is it? So Rashi says now we're switching that as well. It's his money. Okay? So the fruit is basically hers, given to her, from Shemayim to look after. But the money was provided by the husband. So now when she's redeeming the maser sheni with his money, the money belongs to one person, the maser to somebody else. It's not the same person doing it, so it's not considered the owner's redemption, and there is no chaimish. That's Rameir shita. For Rabbanan l'tamayu de amri momen heditu. Rabbanan are following their shita elsewhere. Maser sheni is considered personal property. In this case, she's yerush the maser sheni, goes straight to the husband to look after, to benefit from, to get the produce. He reinvests it, right, to get the rest of Paris, like any other nichsei melug. And whose money is being used to redeem it? His money. It's basically his transaction. There's chaimish. Okay, let's see the words. Rabbanan tamayu, the amri momen heditu. The maser sheni reverts to his ownership. Hilkach shlichus the baal ka'avda. So now when she's using his money on his fruit, it's basically doing him a job, representing him. It's his task, his redemption. His pidyon, therefore there's a chaimish. So the bottom line is, we thought we had to steer it, because here, when it comes to Pidyon Maser Sheni, Tanakama say there is no way to get out of the Chaimish. It's the owner's transaction. Rameir says, yeah, you can skip the Chaimish. Initially we thought it's his fruit. Well, if it's his money, then of course there's a Chaimish. If it's her money, there's no Chaimish. So what's the machlekes? Somebody gave her the money to be used for this purpose. One shita says it is considered her money. The other shita says it's his money. And it seems to be a contradiction between this sugi and the previous sugi. Abai says switch the names. Rava says no, we're speaking about his money but her fruit. She was yerush the fruit. But it was already Maser Sheni when she was yerush it, when she got it. Rameir holds Mama in Hegdish. It doesn't revert to his ownership. So it's her fruit and his money. Pidyon was not executed by the owner, there's no Chaimish. Rabbanan say it goes over to his Ba'alus, it's his ownership, it's his fruit. His fruit, his money, there's Chaimish. Continues the Gemara. Tana, we have in a Brisa other methods of an Evet Kanani leaving the ownership of this master. So in the Mishnah we spoke about the Evet Kanani leaving through Kesef, through bailout, through Shtar. Here come another couple of methods, which are pretty much the same idea. Tana Yaitze B'Shein V'Ayin V'Roshei Varim Shein and Chayzer. So the pasuk clearly tells us that when the owner damages his tooth, his eye, he goes free, and the Gemara will add Roshei Avarim as well. Roshei Avarim is a term used to describe other limbs. So literally it means the tips of his Avarim, his fingertips, his toe tips, which were harmed, which were damaged. She'ein and Chayzim, all these do not grow back, they do not regenerate. They're permanently damaged limbs, and if they were damaged by the owner, by the master, he goes free. So here's another method of freedom. Bishlam is Shein V'ayin Ksivi. Now, Shein V'ayin are clearly articulated in the pasuk. Look at the psukim. It says if the owner damages his eye, his tooth, he goes free. What about the other ones? Ela Rashi Varim Minon. How do we know that? Dumi the Shein V'ayin. We compare it to Shein V'ayin. Ma Shein V'ayin. Just like Shein V'ayin, Amumin Shebegoli. They're visible blemishes. They're exposed. Ve'ein on Chayzim. They don't reheal, they don't grow back. Likewise, any other similar type of injury, allow him to go free. Why, says the Gemara? Perhaps we shouldn't say. The fact that the pasuk mentions Shein and Ayin, which is almost like a repetition, would indicate to us that only these specific injuries trigger freedom. Otherwise, why mention both? You can just learn one from the other, right? And just these are nothing else. Ve'ema nihavu shein v'ayin kishnei ksuvim habayim ke'echad. There are two psukim which are pretty much repeating the same idea, and we know that when that happens, we don't extend it to elsewhere. V'chol shnei ksuvim habayim ke'echad ein melamdim. Tzrich, no, really, it's not a repetition because each one carries a novelty, a chiddush. Each one is teaching us something. And therefore we have to say both. The Torah only mentioned the shein. I would say afilu shein the chala, even a baby tooth. It's called shein the chalav, which is belonging to a katan, who nurses. So basically, even that one, which is slated for departure in any case, I would think that also qualifies. Kasav rachmana ayin. That's why the Torah adds the eye. No. It has to be something that is not meant to fall out. Because Rachmana Ayin. If the Torah only writes the Ayin, I would say Ma'ayin Shnivr Imay. What's unique about his eye? He was born with it. The original Aver is there. Av Kol Shnivr Imay. So anything else also has to have that criterion. It has to have been born with him. I was Shein Lay, but not a tooth, which came later. Perhaps that doesn't qualify tzricha. That's why the pasuk saw a need to mention both. It's not a repetition, and therefore it allows us to extend it to include other Rasha Evarim. Now, ve'ema, perhaps we should say like this. Don't expand, don't include. Limit it to shein v'ayin. Why? Ki yake klal. Pasuk says, v'chi yake ishes ein avdoi, oyes ein amosai, v'shichasa, destroyed it, lachavshi yishalchenu tachas ein. Why don't we use the klal and prat formula to limit it to only these two specific things? Ve'ema ki yake. Ki yake means, he struck him in any manner. Klal, a general term, any type of injury. Shein v'ayin, when the pasuk continues, shein v'ayin, that's a prat. It's a limited form of energy. Only these injuries. And what happens when we have a klal and a prat? Klal or prat, ein b'chal, mashar prat. Torah is only alluding to those specific instances. Shein v'ayin, only a shein v'ayin that are injured allow his release. But not other types of injuries. So why don't we just limit it? The answer is the pasuk comes back and broadens it. Chavshei shalchenu, which is at the end of the pasuk. Chazar v'kolal. That's another expression of klal, inclusive, general, klal uprato klal, which gives us the klal uprato klal formula, which tells us, expand it. Yatadan elkein prat. We can add others which are similar to the itemization. Ma prat mefurash mum shebegoli ve'enon chayzrim. What's specific and unique about the klal, about the prat, about the shein v'ayin? They're exposed, they're visible, and they don't grow back. It's permanent. Same thing regarding other injuries. Af koil mum shebegoli ve'enon chayzrim. If you fit that criteria, if you're mum shebegoli and you don't regenerate, it's a permanent damage, then you're good to go. So that's the Gemara, but we have one more element found in the prat. Aside from being visible and exposed and permanent, it's when he knocks out his eye is no longer functioning, it's disabled. The same thing with his tooth. So perhaps that condition is needed as well to qualify for release. Perhaps you need three conditions. And if so, we have a kasha, alamatanya, but the Brisa says you don't need batal v'malachta. Let's say the owner pulled on his beard very violently, talash beziknoi, v'dilda b'yetzim, and he dislocated some sort of minor bone along his jaw area, which is certainly a terrible injury, a permanent injury, but he can still eat, he can still function. What does the Brisa say? Does he go free? Yeah. Eved yotzivem lecheres. Why? There's no bit of malacha. Answers the Gemara, you know what, instead of doing the klal or prato klal, which limits our ability to expand, because it has to be very similar to the items mentioned, we'll revert over to the formula called riboy miyut and riboy formula, which basically means inclusive, exclusive, and then inclusive, which allows you to add much more. Because it doesn't really have to be so similar to the examples mentioned. You just want to exclude something which is totally out of whack, totally in left field. But as long as it resembles somewhat the items mentioned, you're okay. So you don't need to fit the bill 100%. So it's basically a more inclusive type of formula. So it's a lashon of inclusive. It's an inclusive lashon. So we have inclusive, exclusive, inclusive, which allows us to include much more. As long as it's mum shebegoli, it's exposed and visible and it's permanent. Asks the Gemara, who says you need permanence? If you come to include afilu kayo al yadav etzamsa v'sefer lachshar nami. Suppose he struck him on his hand, it shriveled, it's sort of disabled it temporarily. It's going to come back and be functional again. Maybe that also qualifies for freedom. Alamatani, we have a brayso which says not so. Hiko al yodav etzamsa v'sefer lachshar. It's going to be back in service soon. Ain't never do it. Why not? Who says you need permanence? Because otherwise you're including so many things, then what's the point of even mentioning shein v'ayin? Right? So, the fact that Torah writes both, shein and ayin, say the Mefarshim, indicates that you need something exposed and also something which creates a permanent and lasting condition, as opposed to something which is just temporarily. So, bottom line is, the evidence is Yetzi L'Cheres by shein ve'ayin, and other Eivarim, as long as it's mumshe begoloi and it's permanent. Tanu Rabbanan. Next question. He goes free, but how quick? Does he need a release document? Do you have to give him a get shichrur, or is it just out? Tanu Rabbanan. We have 3 shittas. V'kulam. In all these situations, Eved Yotzevem Lecheres, as soon as he gets that injury, he's free. V'tzarach get shichrur, but he needs a get shichrur. Divrei Reb Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda, no, ain't a tzarach. You don't need a star. This is his ticket to freedom. Rabbi Lazar Metzarach, he needs. Rabbi Tafnai ain't a tzarach. He doesn't need. Rabbi Kiva Metzarach. Hamachrim v'pnei chacham. There were certain Tanaim who were there and who tried to compromise, and they did sort of strike a middle ground. They said like this: Nirin divrei b'tarf m'shein v'ayin. We adopt Rabbi Tafshin Shita when it comes to shein v'ayin. The Torah grants him that freedom. It's a fairish pasuk in the Torah. You don't need to get. But v'divrei Rabbi Kiva b'shar Eivarim. When it comes to other forms of injury, we go through Rabbi Kiva's shita. You need to get shichr. Hoyelu knas chachamim. It's just a penalty applied by the chachamim against the owner for doing this thing. And a get is required. Really, knas chachamim? What do we just said? It's a pasuk. Kroi KIDDUSHIN. It's all based on drashas. We didn't make it up. Elohayel midrash chachamim. You're right. It was, taught by the Chachamim. It's a drasha, and Taisa says there's a chashash, and maybe it's not so well known, and the owner might bump into him in the street and says, "Well, you're my Eved. What are you doing, running around free?" So we want to avoid that uncomfortable situation, and therefore we give him a get. Okay, let's touch on the core of the machlekes. He gets injured. He's entitled to go free. Why would you need to get shichrur? Why would you not need to get shichrur? My time with the Reb Shimon that you need to get shichrur. Dar Yalef Shiluach Meisha. He has a Gzera Shava. It says Shiluach over here. Lachav Sheishalchenu. It says a similar lashon by get Isha. V'shilchami Beisoy. And we say Ma Isha Bishtar, Av Evdam Bishtar, just like there a star is needed, here as well. Rameir disagrees. You don't need a star over here, Rameir, because of Chavshil Basayv. If the pasuk would have mentioned the word Chavshi at the end, Ishal Chenu La Chavshi, it would make. I would follow your sheet. I would agree with you because then it would indicate that he would have to set him free. He would only go free with a star. Because of Chavshil Basayf, it would say the word Chavshi at the end. Kilka Amris, I would say Yishal Chenu Lo Chavshi means that if he does Yishal Chenu, right? If he does the star, which is Yishal Chenu, right? Lo Chavshi, that's how he goes free. So a star is needed. But Hashta the Ksiv Chavshi Yishal Chenu. But now it goes the other way. It says Lo Chavshi Yishal Chenu. To freedom he will send him. That sounds like the Chavshi happens independent of the Shiluach, of the star. He's already going Chavshi because of the injury that he experienced. And now Yishal Chenu just sends him off. He doesn't need more than just the injury. Tana Rabbanan. He kowal einoi v'sama. So now we're going to have different types of situations, which some qualify for freedom, some don't. Okay, so he kowal ala einoi v'sima. The master struck him on his eye and blinded him. Al ozna v'cheresha, over his ear, and he made him deaf. Eved yotzei b'hen l'cherus. So this entitles him to go free, right? But let's say it wasn't directly on his eye or on his ear. He made a loud bang nearby, and it frightened him and caused this condition. Keneged einoi v'einoi roya. Made this loud bang nearby and somehow blinded him. Keneged oznei v'nishma, near his ear, and it made him deaf. In these cases, ein eved yotzei b'hen l'cherus, he doesn't go free. Because we don't, it seems at this point that we don't hold the it's not a direct, let's put it this way, it's not a direct hezek coming from the master. It's sort of just like a causation, a grama. And therefore he's pater. We have a kasha on this from a Gemara in Bava Kama. Listen to this. Amar Rav Shaman l'Ravashi. L'me'emra de kol lav klumu? Do you mean that making loud sounds and bangs and noises are not considered an act of hezek? You're not responsible for that? Lav klumu? Vatandi Rami Bar Cheskel. He teaches us that a tarnagel, let's say a rooster, a chicken, shoishet roishay la'avir kli schuchis, plucked his head into the glass container, v'takaboy, and he started crowing, he started making noise. And that sharp sound actually collapsed, it cracked the glass. V'shibra, mishal nezek shalom, has to pay fully. Even though he didn't directly strike the glass, it was his, the sound waves that did it. Amar Bei Rav, another halacha, sus shatana v'chamar shanar. A horse made a sound, a chamor, a donkey brayed. Shanar, so they made that sound. V'shibru kalim, they broke the kli. B'sei chabayis in the house. M'shamim chasin nezek, they have to pay half of the damages. Well, this is actually a big machlekes in Bava Kama, because it's called tsureiros. Tsureiros means pebbles. So basically, whenever it's a damage inflicted directly, basically like he steps on something, that's a full payment. But when the animal, shoots something like a pebble, that's a machlekes there, whether it results in 50% payment, 100% payment, and this is like tsureiros because it's not a direct physical damage. There was something of a medium, right? He shot his airwaves at the kli. So that's a side point. The question is 50% or 100%, but either way we hold him accountable. The owner of the animal has to pay for it. So why is it that by the eved we say otherwise? If he hits him directly, he goes free. But if it's indirectly, by way of a sound wave, by way of frightening him, that doesn't qualify. Why? Why is it different than the chicken? He says big difference. Shani hasa adam. A person is different. When a person is a victim, if he's struck directly, there's no way out. But when it comes through fright, through fear, there is an emotional factor involved, and as difficult as it really is to resist it. Well, we're not really saying practically it's so easy, but technically speaking, a person could just turn the other way. A person could resist. A person could deflect that fear if he's really really on top of his game. So ultimately, the eved, sort of could have gotten out of it. Could have ignored that frightening sound. He has das. He has self-control. He could have ignored it. Iu mivis nafshe. Interesting. I'll just read Rashi inside. About halfway down the Amid. Shani adam adavar dasu. Hai nizik. This eved who is injured, he's a bardas. V'chi mivis midate kamivis. Why, says Rashi? Shenoisan liboy. He pays attention. El pachat koil haba pisam. He's paying attention because technically, if you'd be totally immersed in something else, it's unlikely and almost impractical. But if he's totally focused and totally immersed in something else, he wouldn't be noticed. He wouldn't get frightened. So, technically speaking, he sort of contributed to what happened, or he didn't resist this experience, and therefore, technically speaking, you can't hold the master fully responsible, and therefore he doesn't go free. Keddesan, you have a similar halacha. Maves says chaveroi. If one scares, frightens his friend, as terrible as it is, pater medini adam, v'chay b'dini shemayim. So in Bezdin they can't obligate him, although in Shemayim they hold him accountable. But down here in this world we only deal with physical phenomena, not emotional, etc. Ketzad, for instance, taka ba'aznai v'chirshei pater. So let's say yelled into his ear. Okay? So, and then he turned deaf because of it. Right? So he's potter. So he blows into his ear and he makes a loud noise. He's potter because he didn't actually physically hold his ear when he did it. But but if he's actually holding onto his ear and he blows into it, he makes that noise, then he is chayiv for deafening him, because here there was a physical, component to it. He actually, held onto his ear. Somehow that's considered more direct, more physical, and he is accountable. Very interesting, fascinating Gemara. So, although the truth is, I said we don't deal with emotional, it's untrue, because we have payment for nezek and boishes as well, shame and embarrassment. So technically there is an emotional accountability, but here we're speaking that the whole thing was never really direct and physical. It was just a sort of an indirect hezek, which Rashi says technically could have been resisted and deflected by the victim. So as terrible as it is, and the Gemara says he's chayiv b'din Yishamayim, there's no question about it. But in terms of Olam Hazeh and Choshen Mishpat, he's potter, and likewise by the Eved, he doesn't go free. Interesting Gemara. Tana Rabban, he koal einay v'chasa. Okay, here comes another interesting case. So he hits him over his eye, and it didn't blind him completely. It weakened his eye. So Rashi says, lo nismis legamri, it's not fully blind, but he can still use it somewhat. Roye b'miktzas. Similar case with the tooth. Al Shina, he hit him over his tooth, v'nadada, and sort of, made it shaky. Does he go free or not? Oh, it depends if it's still functional or not. If the Eved can still use these items, ein Eved yoytze b'necheres, he doesn't go free. So although he severely damaged these limbs, but they're still functional, no freedom. But if they're not functional, then Eved yoytze b'necheres, he goes free. So basically taking the ayin or the shein and turning them into shaky items and barely functional items. So it depends. If they're still functional, fine, but otherwise they go free. He goes free, and Rashi explains, even though he's not yet really blind, right? It means to say that he's partially blind, but he can still use that. It's still functional, still providing. It's still considered re'iyah. Rashi says re'iyah b'miktzas, right? So he can still function with it. That's enough. He doesn't go free. Same thing with the tooth. But otherwise, if there's not enough eyesight there to be considered a functioning eye, same with the tooth, he goes free, even though technically it's still seeing something, and the tooth is still somewhat functioning. Tani idach, we have another brisa, a similar brisa. So let's say this fellow's eye was already partially blinded, and now he totally blinded. Shino neduda, he had a shaky tooth, and now the master totally knocked it out. So he went from sort of 20% functionality to 0. So the question is, was he able to use it before, when it was at the 20% state? Was it functional or not? So if it was functional, and now the Adain rendered it non-functional, he took it from 20 to 0, from useful to unuseful, Eved yoytze b'necheres, that's enough reason for freedom. But otherwise, it wasn't functioning to begin with, and he didn't really do much when he damaged it. Ein Eved yoytze b'necheres. So basically we have two cases where the Eved goes free. The first case, he took it from 100% functionality to 20, but it's not really functioning anymore. Right? Let's make it more simple. He took it from 100 to 10%. And it's not really considered a functioning entity. He goes free. Even though it's still, functioning somewhat, but it's not it's not a properly functioning entity. He can't really see with it, he can't use it. He goes free. In case B, he took it from 20%. It was already severely damaged, but it was still really functional. It was at 20%, which is past the threshold of functionality. It was 20%, he took it down to 0. Here as well, he goes free. Now, why mention both cases, which are pretty much repeating the same idea. V'yitzricha, both are needed. Each one has a chiddush. If we only discuss case 1, right? We took him from 100% to 10%. I would say there it works. There he goes free because initially it was a properly functioning eye. Let's say we're talking about the eye now. And now, he can't really use it. It's so weak that he can't really use it. So he goes free. But in this second case, where, to begin with, it was pretty weak. It was weak to begin with. It was at 20%. So just because he took it down to 0, perhaps he doesn't go free. That's what we need that case as well. Yep, that qualifies. And if we only discuss case 2, when he took it from 20 to 0, because he totally blinded him. So he really damaged it. But in case 1, where he took it from 100 to 10, he didn't blind him completely. So the end result is not full blindness. Perhaps it doesn't qualify. That's why both are needed. So his master was a eye doctor or a dentist. And the ever turns to him and says, you know what? I'm having some eye trouble. I'm having some cavity in my teeth. Could you please look after it? Could you please, insert some eye remedy? And the operation didn't go too well. This someone, he blinded him. Or in the case of the tooth, he says, "Could you just, work around my teeth?" And and it turns out that he removed the tooth. Vipila, sichek ba'adain. So the Eved gets the upper hand. It's like sort of he laughed off the Adin. It was sort of a trick. He goes free. So the Eved got lucky because ultimately the Adin damaged his tooth or his eye, even though he had good intentions. Rabbi Shimon no. When he meant well, he's trying to help him. That's not a reason for freedom, even though he overdid it and he mistakenly knocked out his tooth or his eye. The pasuk describes it as v'shichasa. He destroyed it. He intended on destroying, but otherwise not. The other sheet of the Rabban who disagree. What do I do with this pasuk? That's coming for a different case, where he totally was not even going there. He was involved in a different realm of activity. And inadvertently, it resulted in this eye or tooth being damaged. As opposed to this case where he was actually handling the eye and the tooth. And once he damaged it, he goes free. But in the next case where he was totally uninvolved with this fellow's eye or his tooth, and somehow inadvertently it resulted in damaging those items, then the pasuk says, "V'shichasa." Well, this is different. He does not go free. For the following brisa. So this guy is helping his maidservant give birth, inserts his hand into her womb, and he's trying to help out with the childbirth, and he mistakenly, inadvertently, blinds the fetus. Pater. So he's pater, which means to say that the Eved will not go free. Why? My time el makra v'shichasa. It has to be an act of destruction. Here he was trying to help out. He was totally uninvolved in anything close to destroying, and he wasn't even involved with the eye. So therefore, he's pater, as opposed to the previous case where he was involved with the eye. So if he made a wrong move, he's accountable and he goes free. Now, what does the first shita, Rabban Shimon Liel, do with this pas? How does he know? Both things, basically. We have two levels here: totally uninvolved, and there was damage inflicted, and partially involved and damage inflicted. So going to Rabbanan, only in the totally uninvolved case, like the Uber, we say, well, Damage inflicted is not held against him. V'shichasa. Not only that, but even partial involvement, which results in damage, does not qualify. How does he know that as well? It's two separate levels, two separate chiddushin. V'idach, because he has two drushes. V'shichas, it could have said v'shiches, destruction, an act of destruction. Shichasa, the extra hay. So nafka, we learn from both drushes that both cases are exempt. V'idach, the other shita says shichas alidarish. He doesn't focus on the hey. That's just a form of expression. We only have one mute to address the case of the Adin who was helping with the childbirth and totally uninvolved, totally unrelated to the eye. In that case, damage inflicted is not chayev. Amar of Sheshes. Suppose the Eved's eye was already blind. And the Adin went ahead and removed the eye. So he didn't actually blind him, but he removed the eye. Eved, Yotzei ben Lecheres, is considered a significant, deterioration in his condition. He actually made him a real visible, balmum. He goes free, my taima. Now he's missing a limb. And that's considered a serious change of status. Vitana, and we have our Tana, Tuna, Vitana, as was learned, Tuna by our Tana. Basically, we have arrived from a Tana to this point, from a totally different topic, carbones. We know that a carbon, animal carbon, has to be unblemished, and sometimes it has to be a zachar, a male. Tamos v'zachrus b'behema. By behema, the concept of zachar and tam apply. Ve'ein tamos v'zachrus ba'ifos. They don't apply to birds. They don't have to have these qualifications. Yochel, perhaps, I'll take it a step further. Yavashal gadpa. If it's totally, missing a wing, this wing dried up, nikta ragla, missing a leg, missing an eye. Can that be used? No, that's already going too far. Only some birds can be used. Properly functioning birds. Not everybody. So we see clearly that even if the concept of mum doesn't apply to a bird, let's say his eye is blinded, that's okay. Rashi says even if his eye is samui, but once he removes that eye, it's called a mechusar aver. It's a totally new status. Likewise by the evet, removal of his eye constitutes a new status. Mechusar aver, that highlights his blemish and allows him freedom. Amar Chibar Ashi, Amar Rab, another Allah. The Evet had an extra finger, Yeseres. V'chatchan, the other removed it. Evet, Yotzei ben Lecheres, that qualifies for freedom, even though it was an extra finger, but now it's missing. It's a visible mum. Amar Rav Huna Vushin Nisperes al Gavayad, provided that that extra finger was Nisperes al Gavayad, could be counted amongst the other fingers, so it's sort of on the same row, and therefore it is considered a finger like the other ones, and removal is considered mechusar aver, mum shebegali ve'ein chayzer, which sets him free. Okay, that's it for today. Let's review today's daf. We have a sugi about the Maser Sheni, the Pidi Maser Sheni. We had a stira between there and our Gemara. We had two ways to explain it. We moved on to the Yitzia b'Shein v'Ayin and Rashi Ivarim Shein and Chayzrim, and we learned through the Klal the Riboy Miyut v'Ribo that not only Shein v'Ayin qualifies for Yitzia l'Cheres, and the other Mum Shebegali, which is permanent v'Ein Chayzer, qualifies as well. Does he need to get shichrur? Well, we have three shitas, yes, no, and sometimes. We learned that only direct damage qualifies, but not by way of sound and airwaves. That's only by the adam, as opposed to by the hezek coming from an animal to inanimate object. Of course, even that type of hezek qualifies. We discussed various levels of eyesight and hearing abilities and what qualifies for Yitzia l'Cheres, what doesn't. We discussed intent. So if he was totally uninvolved and inadvertently there was some sort of damage, he's putter. But if there was involvement, but indirect involvement, such as tending to his eye and his tooth, and resulted in damage, we have machlekes in terms of whether he's Yotzei l'Cheres. A blinded eye which was removed is considered mechusar aver, and is Yotzei l'Cheres. An extra finger which results in visible damage as well. All the best to you. B'suras toivos and atzlacha rabba.